Welcome to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, and we are finally ready to be able to talk Bills games. But first, I'd like to bring on my co-host, the Buffalo Bills fan, the Mets fan, and every sports fan in between. Please welcome, again, returning this week, Mr. Joe Dalio. Hey, Joe, how's it going this week?
It's going great, Jamie. How are you doing?
Good. I'm still trying to just stay calm from the game last night. I mean, I know that didn't go our way, but hey, it was just one game. The Jets got a good defense. Allen had 4 turnovers, as they always say. If you lose the turnover battle, there's a good chance you're going to lose the game. But yeah, I'm fine with it. What do you think?
You know, I'm still upset about a few things. I'm glad we're doing this show 20 hours or so after the game because I was a little fired up last night. So I'm glad, I had the opportunity to calm down here and talk a little bit more sanely, I guess, about some of the things that happened last night. So I'm ready.
Yeah, and you better be ready for this one because not only is this about the Bills, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest on this week's episode. He is from Rochester, New York. He's a big Penn State Nittany Lions fan, and he's currently a sports radio host on 95.1 FM, iHeartMedia in Rochester. He's the cowbell to my Don't Fear the Reaper. If anybody knows that song, Don't Feel the Reaper. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, making his debut on the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room in the StreamYard, Mr. John DeTulio.
Jamie, thanks for that intro, Joe. It's great to be with both of you. I love Don't Fear the Reaper. Great tune, more cowbell, right? You automatically think of Saturday Night Live with that. Great tune.
Blue Oyster Cult.
Yes.
Yep. So, you guys ready to get started and talk about some football topics ranging from the Bills game to other things?
Sure, absolutely.
Let's do it.
All right. So let's see. Let's take a look at the Thursday night game. We're going to begin with the Lions taking on the Kansas City Chiefs at home. And so, Joe, what do you think about the Lions beating the Super Bowl champs 21-20? And do you believe that there should be an asterisk on this win or not?
Well, you heard it all right here. Those Lions not making the playoffs. And they kind of made me look bad in saying that. Yeah. Now it's only one game. And we're going to say that a lot during the show. It's only one game. But I was impressed. The Chiefs didn't come out as fired up as I thought, perhaps. And the Lions did. I still felt the whole time that the Chiefs were going to win this game, even as it was going on and things were playing out. But, both teams played well. Of course, Travis Kelce not being in the lineup was a big handicap for the Chiefs. And turns out it probably did make a big difference. But hats off to the Lions. To go into Kansas City, usually those Super Bowl champions don't lose those opening Thursday night games. I think since they've been doing it, it's happened maybe 4 times, including the Bills last year. But, usually it's the Super Bowl champs that win those. And again, all along, I thought that was going to happen. But hats off to the Lions. Great performance by them and just walking in and getting it done.
Yeah, I know. It kind of reminds me of the opening game in 2017 when the Chiefs came in and beat the Patriots and nobody thought they could do it. And that was like the beginning of the Chiefs dynasty because that was Alex Smith's last year. And I don't know if that's a direct comparison to the Lions now beating the Chiefs because there's still questions with the Lions, but it's an interesting coincidence to talk about there. And so John, being the big radio DJ host you are in Rochester and your trivial memory for sports, what did you think about the Lions beating the Chiefs?
I'm a believer. You go back to November, they're 9-2 over their last 11 games. They have arguably the best offensive line, or at least in the discussion. When you have that offensive line, we'll talk about the Bills and the Jets, and that's their weakness for Buffalo and New York. But the Lions have a really good offensive line. They've got good young players, and they believe. I was not a believer in Dan Campbell at all when he got the job. I'm a believer now. They have bought into what he's selling. They have put together a really good roster. It's not the same old Lions, and they're going to contend, if not win, the NFC North. I'm a believer. If you're a Chiefs fan, you're not panicking whatsoever. A lot of drop balls, made some mistakes in that game. They'll get Travis Kelce healthy. Chris Jones just signed. If you're a Chiefs fan, you feel okay. I don't think there's no need to panic after one game. But if you're a Lions fan, this is almost what you expected after how they finished last year, to go into Kansas City, make it a game, and win it. And they were able to seal the deal at the end of that game.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, their offensive line and what they were able to do with that great offensive line was just they kept the game simple. They managed the clock. They ran the ball well. They passed it well, and they were able to just I don't know what the actual stats were in time of possession, but I think the Lions, you could clearly see they dominated the Chiefs in time of possession. It seemed like the Lions almost had the ball every time you were watching that game. It was, and I've been saying that as a Bills fan for a long time, knowing the AFC Championship game where we tried to play zone coverage against Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, and that doesn't work well because they're already great players and they're gonna beat you deep. So, but the Lions also were coming with pressure on Mahomes all night. They were swarming him the entire night, and it looked like. But that's the formula too. You blitz Mahomes to make him neutral in the pocket, and you just play clock against him and keep Mahomes on the sideline. So that's important there. Moving on to Sunday's games, let's talk about the Green Bay Packers versus the Chicago Bears game. And to reference that Bud Light commercial that was playing on all week, for Jordan Love, it wasn't just Jordan Love, it was a Sunday kind of love for the Green Bay Packers. If you get the reference there, it's a good tune, by the way. So anyway, Green Bay continued to look like their good old selves against the Bears as Jordan Love threw for 245 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first start after waiting 3 years to finally start a game for the club, beating the Bears 38-20. And I actually want to point out Jordan Love's stats in his first game were actually better than Rodgers' stats in his first games. They mentioned that on the Fox broadcast, which was pretty interesting. But time will tell with if the young man continues to shine like that after a brilliant debut taking over for Rodgers. So again, the Packers beat the Bears 38-20. So what are your thoughts on this game, John? I'll start out with you this time.
I look at that Packer roster. It's a good roster. They have a very good offensive line. If David Bakhtiari stays healthy, that's a key. They got 2 really good running backs with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. Good young wide receivers, a really good defense. Jordan Love, I love the game plan. He didn't need to take chances. He took care of the football. If he manages the game, and I know that's an overused term in sports, but manage the game, don't make the big mistake, and got to rely on that running game, rely on that defense. I love the game plan by Matt LaFleur. The Packers will contend with the Lions for the NFC North division title. Absolutely. And if you're a Bears fan, you're scratching your head. What are you doing? Justin Fields looked awful. He never got comfortable, never found a rhythm. They don't have an identity. The Bears do not have an identity, didn't have it last year. And this is the 3rd season for Justin Fields. Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles, they got to decide what they want to do and have an identity. Either going to run the football, open things up for Justin Fields. You bring in DJ Moore. You got Chase Claypool, Cole Kmet. They've got players. I think you unleash Justin Fields and rely on that defense, which I know they got shredded late in that game. I still think that defense can be pretty good.
Exactly, especially because Eberflus was a former defensive coordinator, and defense is his special. Should be a specialty, obviously. But like you said, Justin Fields didn't look like his old self, and I had him for fantasy this week, but so I didn't do that great, but I think he will have his good days for fantasy too. That's why I'm not ready to give up on him yet, because he's a rushing quarterback, and rushing yards is an important part of fantasy now. So anyway, but I do think the Bears will be able to run the ball as the season goes on, because that rookie running back they had actually looked pretty good when he had opportunities to run the ball. They just didn't give him that many carries. So, and so, Joe, what do you think about this game?
I agree with everything you guys said. Going into the game, I expected the Bears to win that game. So I was a little surprised, but I only saw bits and pieces of the game, but based on what John was saying, it's just the Packers looked a lot more prepared for the game than the Bears did. It seemed like they had a plan and they stuck to it, and the Bears were just all over the place. I can vouch for the Justin Fields as starting fantasy quarterback because the same deal. He did all right statistically, but it just seemed like they were disorganized. They didn't have a plan. And they were just kind of winging it, whereas the Packers were kind of a little systematic and things seemed to click. And I'm not surprised. I really have a lot of optimism for Love, and I think he could be, an excellent quarterback. And I agree that team can contend for that division. It's not the strongest division. It's pretty much up for grabs. And certainly the Packers, especially if they play like this, are certainly going to be in that conversation.
I've been definitely saying that too. I think we can pretty much all agree on this point that it's going to be a two-way race in that division, especially what happened with the real big shocker of Tampa going into Minnesota as a -6.5 and not only covering the spread, but upsetting Minnesota in Minnesota. And I don't think anybody expected that, because I had Tampa as only a 4 to 5 win team heading into the year. So it's a little so that was a shock here. But I picked them in my writers ESPN pool. So that ended up being a really good choice. I don't think anybody had that either. So I
had them with the points. A lot of people were expecting Tampa to cover the spread. It was like 5.5 or 4, and then it went down to 4.5, I think. But and I had Tampa with the points, but did not expect them to win. And again, I shouldn't admit this, but a few shows ago, I picked the Vikings to win that division, and they didn't look too good either the other day. So that might not go too well.
Cousins has got to get used to life without Dalvin Cook now. That's going to be a work in progress, but we'll see with that as the season goes on. So let's move on to the probably a game that, if this team pulled it off, would have been probably a huge upset too, as the defending runners-up, the Super Bowl runners-up, the Philadelphia Eagles, traveled to a New England Patriots team who, again, is only expected to finish in last place in the AFC East, but always seems to be very well coached with Belichick. Even with the post-Brady era, Belichick just seems like he does a really good job at tailoring his players to what they do well, especially the defensive side of the ball. And even with Mac Jones too, he looked okay. But anyway, the game started out really fast for Philly as they led 16-0 due to an early pick six by Darius Slay, and then a field goal after former Cowboys, now Patriots running back Ezekiel Elliott sadly fumbled in the first quarter. And the Patriots did really back within 20 points, but it was too little too late as the Eagles squeaked out a 5-point thriller week 1 in Foxborough. What were your thoughts on this matchup? Joe, do you want to start? I'll start with you.
All right. I spent a lot of the afternoon watching the NFL Red Zone, so I got a little pieces of action. And it seemed like when this game started, it was just they were cutting into New England like every couple of minutes. And, it looked like Philadelphia was going to win this game convincingly. And, hats off to the Patriots. They played well, they stuck around, and they had a serious chance to win this game. And people are on Mac Jones, and they talk about how he's not an NFL quarterback, and he's not horrible. I mean, is he a cornerstone franchise quarterback? I guess we still don't know, but every time I watch this guy, it's like I just don't understand why people just completely tear him apart. And they had no business even being close in this game, but they were, and they had a chance to win. So, good job by the Eagles to get the job done. But I really appreciate the Patriots' performance, and the fact that they had a chance to win that game, I think, is pretty incredible after the way it started.
I agree too. And you mentioned, I think the reason why they tear on Mac Jones is because he's got huge expectations trying to replace Tom Brady, but that's hard for any rookie guy to do that after he was there for 20 years. Yeah. And like John, you attested to this. He's not what Joe said. He's not a franchise guy, but he's just a smart guy who knows how to manage.
He doesn't wow you. There's no wow moments with him. Manage the game. Don't make the big mistake. I like some of their offensive players, Stevenson and Bourne, but this is a really good defensive team. And I think they're going to be a pesky tough out for everyone, certainly in the AFC East. I think they'll be in every game. I'm anxious to see Mac Jones grow with Bill O'Brien as the offensive coordinator. I think Mac Jones, you saw, as Joe just mentioned, you saw some glimmer there in that second half, certainly in the fourth quarter. He started throwing that ball, all over the yard. I think as he gets more comfortable with Bill O'Brien in this system, I think you're going to see Mac Jones develop. Maybe he will have a few of those wow moments, but he is what he is at this point. I like New England. I think that can be an 8-9 win team, but I think there'll be a tough out for the Dolphins, Bills, and the Jets. All three of those teams will have a tough time with New England. I like what I saw on Sunday. And Philadelphia is fine. On the road, bad fumble by Jalen Hurts. Philadelphia didn't play their best, sloppy conditions, but found a way to get it done. I love that. It's a good sign of a good championship medal for Philadelphia.
Exactly. So let's move on to the probably one of the biggest stunner games of the evening, the Sunday night game between the Cowboys and the Giants. And do we really have to talk about poor Daniel Jones? I mean, that was rhetorical satire there, by the way. Anyway, we have the Dallas Cowboys who took on the New York Giants in the Meadowlands in the rain, and nothing was going right for Daniel Jones. Doing my little Chris Berman boomer impression with nothing right there. But you have to remember there is a position in the NFL known as the offensive line. And I think it's kind of funny that I didn't really hear anything about the Giants offensive line not really blocking Daniel Jones, because Daniel Jones was just running for his life back there. And Dallas was also like blitzing probably like every 3 to 4 plays. And that was hard for Daniel Jones and a lot of quarterbacks in week one to be able to adjust, because as you saw in the preseason, even in the preseason, you see a lot more defensive coordinators blitzing's kind of making a comeback this year than it has in the past 2 years. So that's going to be a thing to watch as the season goes on, is how the defenses do well with the blitzing and how the offenses eventually adapt to that. But this game was just not good for the Giants. But granted, they were getting overworked and outplayed. And yet Daniel Jones, I think he basically took all the negative credit for all the mistakes. And I don't think he was 100% to blame for that game. Yes, we can talk about the new contract. We can talk about all the things about, he didn't live up to it and everything. But they did have to pay him that contract because, like I said, teams they're going to start doing that. They're going to pay for the quarterback and not the running back anymore, as we've talked about that many times, Joe. That's just the modern day game now, where even the average quarterback's going to get the money and the running back isn't. But Daniel Jones got it. So some of their blame could have gone to the offensive line. So what do you guys think about this game? Your thoughts, John?
The Giants didn't look prepared. I just watched Penn State play Delaware over the weekend. It kind of reminded me of an FBS team, Dallas playing an FCS team, and the Giants. They look completely overmatched. I was surprised. And Daniel Jones is not good enough to camouflage a lot of their issues they have up front. So, and Dallas looked fat, much bigger. More importantly, they look fast. The Giants had no answer whatsoever. And Daniel Jones, they had I get it, they overpaid for him, right? I guess they had to. But Daniel Jones is not good enough for the Giants to ride his right arm. He was under duress the entire game. The Cowboys, that defense is legit. I don't know how good Dak Prescott is, what he is. If they get to where they want to go, they're going to rely on Dan Quinn's defense. I love Brian Daboll. His team looked totally unprepared on Sunday night, which was somewhat shocking.
It is shocking because he did obviously he obviously the way he builds his teams, it's exactly like how McDermott did it, and Daboll knows being in Buffalo, it's about culture and putting together family, playing well together, and they do have that under Daboll. It's just can Daniel Jones bounce back from that? And I still have a place in my heart for Brian Daboll because he was a good guy and he was a good offensive coordinator for the Bills, and it was sad to see him go, but he had to take that job at the Giants, and I think he still did a remarkable job last year, winning Coach of the Year and everything. So yeah, it's definitely not him. He's still going to be the coach for a long time. It's just a matter of, like I said, what are they going to do with Jones after this game? But Joe, what are your thoughts?
I mean, what in God's name happened? That's all I kept thinking this whole time. I mean, I'm a Bills fan, but growing up in New York, I'm also a lifelong Giants fan, and I was really looking forward to that game. And you know, I'm thinking even before this Monday doubleheader, I got the Giants on Sunday night. I got the Bills on Monday night. As I get older, I can't really stay up late anymore. So it's like, how am I going to be able to watch both these games? And the Giants answered that question easily for me because by the first quarter, I was in bed. You know, just preparation, as John said, I think one team showed up to showcase their talent, especially their defensive talent. That, of course, being the Cowboys. And one team showed up just totally not ready to go. And obviously that manifested big time, you know, in the score. So I didn't see too much of the game just again because I wanted to be able to watch the Bills game Monday night, and it was just falling apart very, very quickly for the Giants. And, you know, again, Dallas, like John was saying too, because of that defense, you know, I was saying all along, I think Dallas is a Super Bowl contender, but if the defense plays like that, I think that's definitely going to, you know, to bring them into that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the theme here with today's NFL is even the last few years with the preseason. I think you kind of see this now in week one where you got one team that's totally prepared and another team that isn't, because today's preseason, it's shortened with only 3 games. And even when it was 4, the last couple of years, teams were playing some teams were playing their starters more, and some were playing less and less or not at all. And you could see that now with only 3 preseason games, that it's clear who played their starters more and who didn't in the preseason, and it's showing in week 1. It always seems to happen that way now.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, moving on to Monday Night Football with the Buffalo Bills taking on the New York Jets. First, we have to talk about and take a look at between you and I, Joe, who came closer to the final score of Jets 22, Bills 16 in overtime. Now, Joe, you predicted Bills 23, Jets 21, and I predicted Bills 26, Jets 19. So I'm not really sure who was closer, but Joe, what do you think?
As far as which one of us was closer?
Yeah.
I think we were both right there, to be honest with you. Both of us expected the Bills to win this game. And, you know, we both expected a close game. So we were pretty close, both of us, but I don't know if you want my comments on the game, but
Absolutely, absolutely.
I didn't enjoy it. And here's why. I'll give you, not because the Bills lost. Growing up watching Jets games and everything, I was always a Giants fan, but I always got to watch a lot of Jets games, and I haven't heard that stadium that loud in 30 years probably. And I was looking so forward to that game, and the place was so pumped up, and I'm rooting for the Bills, but I was like, this is going to be a wild ride. This is going to be a great game. And then of course, when Rodgers goes down, it just takes all the air out of the stadium. And, it sounded, instead of sounding like a Jets potential championship team, it sounded like a game in December where the Jets are 4-10 and playing out the string again. It was just, it just sounded like all the air was deflated. And I'm thinking here, watching thinking the Bills all along are going to win this game. I was like, well, I said, it's the fun is out of it. I said, the Bills are going to win a boring business-like, win here. And I was telling some people I was watching the game with, I said, the only way the Bills could possibly lose this game is if they give it away. And we all know that they did. And I don't get angry when my teams lose. I'm a sports fan for a long time. And if my teams win, that's awesome. If my teams lose, it's like, all right, we move on to the next one. But I can't remember being more angry after a loss in a long time. Just again, the fact that they should have won this game. They had a deflated team. I mean, you could see the looks on the players' faces. You could see the look on the coaches' faces. I mean, he knew. In fact, we found out that he knew right away, what the prognosis was, and you could just see it on Salah's face. They a couple of times showed close-ups, and it seemed like he had the weight of the world, and oh my God, what am I going to do now? Look on his face, because he knew. And they had this team completely deflated, and they handed this victory to them on a silver platter. So very disappointing, and I'm sure we'll talk more in a little bit about it.
Yeah, Josh Allen, I definitely think handed the game to him. He even admitted it after the game. He like I said, he is a smart guy. He basically said, "Look, I lost the game tonight. I lost it for my team. It's done. It's over with. We move on to the next one. But it was totally my fault." And he's like, "I'm not going to sugarcoat it." So
right.
Yeah.
Now, John, what were your thoughts about this game?
Well, just starting with Josh. I mean, he's the modern day Brett Favre. When I watch him play, he'll, like Favre, I watched every game he played for 16 years with the Packers. He will do things that not many quarterbacks can do, and then he'll do some things we saw last night where he'll make a big mistake at a big, big moment. And that's alarming. I don't know how you coach that out of him. He's 26 years old. I don't know if Ken Dorsey, maybe if Brian Daboll was still here, perhaps. I don't think Ken Dorsey or even Sean McDermott are going to be able to coach that out of Josh. Some alarm, some red flags. Their offensive line is still, I think, a mess. And collectively, Spencer Brown, he was a turnstile last night, I thought. They got issues up front. Defensively, I think their second line of defense, inside at linebacker, I think they're too small. And the Jets gashed them for 170 yards. Jordan Poyer whiffed a couple of times last night. Now, eventually they'll get Von Miller back. But I watched them play, and I'm going, oh, boy. Same old Bill, same mistakes. Josh still making the same mistakes, has the most turnovers of any quarterback since 2018. Some of the play calling was head-scratching. It's almost – he's like analytics. He goes for the home run, right? When in fact you should just try to get a single, take a walk, do the checkdowns. He was 0 for 5, which I thought was alarming, of passes 20 yards or more. Wow. So there were no big passing plays last night by the Buffalo Bills. Gabe Davis only targeted 4 times. But I come away from that game. I'm not going to panic, but I look. There's a lot of red flags, Joe and Jamie, after watching that game last night. The Jets have Josh's number. That's an elite defense. We were just talking, Joe was talking about how great the Cowboys defense is. You put the Jets. If the Jets had Aaron Rodgers, Listen, that's a playoff team. They could be a Super Bowl team if Aaron.
Right.
They're not going anywhere with Zach Wilson. But if Rodgers was healthy, that team is good enough on paper, especially defensively, to make a Super Bowl run.
I agree. What do
I
you
think
think,
so, too.
Jamie?
I think I like Zach Wilson though. Actually, I think he can still manage the game. I think he can run that offense. Not as good as Rodgers, but he's more mobile and he's able to be more of your dual threat RPO option type of quarterback stuff. And you need to be able to do that. But I think with that defense, they could still be a playoff team with them. I mean, I don't like I said, Zach Wilson is a smart guy, and I think he can run that offense. Not as good as Rodgers, but I think they can still be a playoff team with him too. I mean, you don't know the way that defense is. So, but it's that this is where we are in the NFL now with quarterbacks and the way coaches manage games and everything and how they want to keep guys fresh and not injured, and something like this happens and it's still part of the game, injury. So
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. So okay. It's now the time to move on to our question of the week. So segment. So let's see if John would like to tackle this question.
Okay.
So John, here's your question. Your question is, can you guess who this NFL running back is? He was a 7-time Pro Bowler, won 1 MVP, and played on 7 different teams. Is it Adrian Peterson, Marshawn Lynch, Frank Gore, or Herschel Walker?
I would say Frank Gore.
Nope. It was
What?
Adrian.
Oh, wait, Adrian, 7 teams for Adrian Peterson. Okay.
Yep.
That's funny. I would have guessed Frank Gore too.
Yeah. I
Okay.
wouldn't have guessed Peterson. Okay. Great question, Jamie.
All right. That's good. That was quick and awesome. Thanks. So now let's that the season has finally started. And this is kind of premature to talk about this after week 1, but why not? It's Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. Our conversations are not limited. We could talk about anything on here as long as it involves sports, right, Joe?
Okay.
So yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So let's move on to who we think will make the 2023 NFL awards this year. First up, MVP. Who do you think will be the league's best? Joe, do you want to go first?
Of all the ones I wrote down, that's the one I did not write down. I don't have. Give me a second on that. I'd say give John this one first, and I got to find my answer on that one.
Okay, so go ahead, John. Who do you
Well,
think?
I mean, the leader in the clubhouse may be Tyreek Hill after the first week.
Hmm.
With the day he had, Tua is in the conversation, and he looked really, really good. Tua after 1 week. Mahomes will be in the mix. Burrow will bounce back. But if I'm just going, I think Miami's offense with Mike McDaniel, that's a juggernaut. So right now, I would say my guess would be, why not Tyreek Hill, the early favorite. Other than a quarterback to win the MVP, I would go with Tyreek Hill. Not very often you see a wide receiver win the MVP.
Well, yeah, I not very often do you hear that from a great sports analyst like you, John. So I appreciate it. You went with a wide receiver there instead of a quarterback.
Why not? He's the most dangerous player in the NFL from the skill position. It's him. Every time he touches the ball or the ball's thrown his way, you hold your breath. He's that scary. Tyreek Hill.
Small and blazing fast too, and just hard to cover man to man. Kind of reminds me of a certain Patriots player who was like that with Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, but faster than Julian Edelman in terms of pure speed.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So Joe, did you have a time to sleep on it? So
yeah, I did have one here. I like that Tyreek Hill one though. That's a good one. I think he's primed for an excellent year, especially if Tua could stay healthy. Going to go out on a little bit of a limb here, not much really. How about Jalen Hurts?
I
I
love
think
it.
he's due. I think, I mean, obviously he had a breakout year last year, and I think he takes that another step.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure the Eagles return to the Super Bowl this year, but I think Hurts, even takes it a step higher than where he was last year.
Yeah. So John, you agree with that? What Joe said there?
Oh, yeah.
Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Hurts, absolutely. Loved the pick in the second round when the Eagles drafted him. Once he transferred to Oklahoma, it's like a new quarterback. That tutelage from Lincoln Riley. I love the pick. Absolutely. Jalen Hurts, he is primed. With all the weapons they have and that defense, no question about it. I'm anxious to see I want to see where Brock Purdy is in this conversation at the end of the year. I think he's going to have a really good season with that defense, and Christian McCaffrey stays healthy. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but I think he's going to be really steady. He doesn't lose games in the regular season. Just doesn't. Just wins. And he played great against Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be a 6th-round pick or 7th-round pick wins the MVP? That doesn't happen very often either.
No.
I'm going to go on DraftKings and make a wager for Brock Purdy. I think so. I think I'm going to do it, Joe.
Not a bad pick. Not a bad
we'll
pick
see.
at all.
That's a long shot, but why not? After you get through Mahomes and the Burrows and the Allens and things like that. But I love Hurts. He's money. I love him. He's only going to get better and better. Every time I watch him play, he gets better. It's unbelievable.
I expect him to have an off game or something like that,
Yeah.
and he just impresses me more.
He does
every time he takes the field.
No.
But hopefully everything's okay with Jamie here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
But I mean, he's got a list. I guess I'll ask.
Okay. Yeah, go right ahead, Joe.
Because he had some other stats that I
Okay.
wrote down. Of course, this is the one I didn't write
Yeah.
down. He's got something for Offensive Player of the Year.
Offensive Player of the Year.
Offensive Player of the Year. Any ideas on that?
Offensive. I already went with Tyreek Hill. Mahomes is the obvious pick. That's a great question. Offensive Player of the Year. Quarterback. We're looking at running back. Christian McCaffrey would be my running back if he stays healthy. I would go Christian McCaffrey. Quarterback. I got a feeling Tua. I know Tua is with the concussions. I'm bought in on Tua. I'm buying in. I'll say Tua for the Offensive Player of the Year. I think he's going to put up monster numbers. Monster. And that offense, Joe, with those weapons, a pretty above average offensive line. Really a good defense with Vic Fangio. I'm going to go Tua for Offensive Player of the Year.
Great pick. And I'd love to see it. I'm so afraid he's one hit away, from being out.
Me too.
But the potential is there, especially with Tyreek Hill and how he's playing. That's a great pick. And, the one I had here, I wish Jamie was here to hear this because, we've talked about the running back position a few times on this show and how it's kind of almost being, now we've said it's probably not going to be completely morphed out of the offense, but it's a lot less significant. And my offensive pick is a running back. And you mentioned him already, Christian McCaffrey. I think if he stays healthy, and again, that 49ers offense can lean on him with Purdy.
Yep. Good point.
Again, Purdy just do his steady thing and keep doing what he's doing and have somebody like McCaffrey, carry the offense. I think that is that would be my pick there. But he's got Defensive Player of the Year at this point. Any ideas on that one?
I'll go with Micah Parsons. I know he would have won it last year, but J.J. Watt had 22 and a half set, whatever it was, 22 and a half. Or T.J. Watt. I'll go with Micah Parsons. He is the most feared defensive player in the NFL. I love Aaron Donald. I love T.J. Watt. Micah Parsons was so fast. He was in the backfield. Daniel Jones couldn't even do a play action. He was on him like that I'll say Parsons for Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay. I went a little out of the way. Myles Garrett, I said.
He's a monster. Yeah, good pick.
Cleveland's defense, I think, is underrated as well. And, he's a big part of that.
I like your pick. I love Jim Schwartz calling the defense there. Great hire, and that's a great pick. Myles Garrett, who is just a freak when you watch him play. It's how gifted he is. He's the guy's a monster.
Yeah, and I caught him a little bit the other day. I got a little sample of some of the games, and he's very impressive. Something tells me we're going to be unanimous on this one. He's got a list for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Oh, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Okay, good. Yeah, automatically you think of the quarterbacks, and Bryce Young didn't look too good. C.J. Stroud played okay. Anthony Richardson. I'm thinking of some of the young quarterbacks. I still like Bryce Young at Carolina with the tutelage of Frank Reich. Who do you got, Joe?
I got a running back here.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there you go.
Atlanta Falcons.
Yes.
Bijan Robinson.
He's a stud. Absolutely a stud. Atlanta's gonna be a tough out too. Atlanta may end up winning that division in the
anybody
NFC South.
could win
Potentially,
that division.
anybody could. Sure. That's a good pick, Joe. With Beach, maybe I'll flip my pick. I'll stick with Bryce Young. I know he didn't play well, but let's give him some time under Frank Reich. I think he'll be okay.
I think he'll be okay as well. I like that pick too. Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Ooh. Defensive Rookie of the Year. That's a great call. Boy, I'm going to need some time on this one. Defensive Rookie of the Year. Let me think here. I'm a Packers fan. I like Lucas Van Ness from Iowa. I'm going to go long shot. Give me double-digit sacks. Steals it. 10.5 sacks. Had one on Sunday. I'm going to go. That's my dark horse, my long shot.
Okay,
who do you got?
I like it. I got to go. I mean, with the obvious one, Jalen Carter.
Stud. Can't block him.
Yeah. So, I was thinking Will Anderson perhaps too.
Okay, good pick.
Both high draft picks and obvious choices. No rocket science there.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm going to go.
Okay, I like that pick.
The next one he has is Breakout Player of the Year.
Breakout Player of the Year. Someone who's been kind of sitting on their hands the last couple of years and just has a breakout year. You know what?
I guess, yeah, or just, is ready, kind of like a Jalen Hurts, ready to take the next step.
Okay. I almost said Zach Wilson. I'm almost thinking, why not? I'll say Zach Wilson, Breakout Player of the Year.
Wow.
Nobody wasn't expected to even be the quarterback. And now they pin their hopes on him. I think you know what? Won't have a great year, but enough to be called the Breakout Player of the Year. Zach Wilson, who looked like he was a bust after his first 2 years.
That's
right.
I'll
go with Zach Wilson for the Jets. Who do you got, Joe?
All right. So I got a defensive player and an offensive player. The Miami Dolphins. I remember this guy, linebacker, and the game in Buffalo here, how he just showed up and in the cold. Jalen Phillips.
Oh yeah, good call.
Ooh.
I'm back, guys. So anyway, sorry about that, folks.
Jamie, good to have you back. I'm going to throw Jordan Love in there too, Joe, as my breakout player. Big year.
Okay.
Good to have you back, Jamie.
Yeah, my internet was down. We apologize, folks. My internet went down and are back. So actually look at this. We got 3 comments here. We got one says, "Hey guys, hey, you back." The other one says, "Dolphins fan, but here not to troll, just a hello from a channel to another." That's respectful.
Yeah.
And he said, "Keep up the great work." 3 really good comments from an AFC rival whose team won week 1 against the Chargers. I want to say, Dolphins Thursday, that was an impressive win over a Chargers team that is still trying to get over the hump with Brandon Staley and everything. So where were we? We were talking about MVP. So you said Jalen Hurts, John, right, for MVP? You
No,
agree with Joe?
I didn't say Jalen. That was Joe's pick, but I love that pick. Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
who's your pick? Go ahead. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
I was going to say we went a little bit ahead here in some of your categories, so maybe we can hear some of your points of view. We talked about some of these,
Yeah.
like the offensive, defensive player of the year, and that. So we were talking about our the things that you had listed here. So offensive player of the year, I said McCaffrey. John said, I don't remember.
Wait, my offensive player of the year?
Yes.
Wait, oh my God, Joe! I totally forgot what I said. Did I say? I said Tua for MVP. Who was my offensive player? I think I said. Yeah, I think I waffled. It was McCaffrey / Tua. I think it was those two. I think.
Yeah, I think you did say Tua.
Terrible. I didn't even write it down, Joe.
So both of you got CMC then for offensive player of the year, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And again, I was saying the ironic thing, Jamie, is that we're talking on this show about how running backs are not as impactful as they used to be.
Yeah.
So I wanted to throw some irony here that, I'm going to pick a running back for that award here.
Because he is the exception to the rule, as he got a 4-year, $60 million contract after being traded from Carolina last year. And I agree with that. I think it should go to the running back who still got his contract and still was paid in an era of devalued running backs and paying wide receivers, defensive players, and quarterbacks more. So, yeah, I think CMC should win offensive player of the year. And what do you guys say for defensive player of the year? You want to go first,
I said Micah Parsons from the Cowboys, defensive player of the year.
What about you, Joe?
And I said Myles Garrett of the Browns.
Yeah, so we got Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons. I'm going to actually, majority rules here, I'm going to agree with John here and say Micah Parsons for defensive player of the year, not because my mom's a Cowboys fan, but also he's just he looks a part and he acts a part, he plays a part too. He does all three of those things well, and he's just he's just so fast as a linebacker. The way he pursues to the ball and tackles is just it's old school. It's old school bread and butter type of linebacker, but it's efficient and it still gets it done in today's game in a passing league. So
if he plays anywhere near as well as he played the other day, he'd certainly be capable of winning that award.
Almost like a modern day LT, if you want to say.
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah. Pretty close.
Yeah. Now let's take a look at defensive rookie of the year. And who is getting your vote for that? John, do you want to start?
I took it since I have a soft spot for the Packers. I went with Lucas Van Ness of Iowa, who had a big sack the other night. I think he's my long shot. I'm going to DraftKings to put my bet on the Iowa defensive end. I think he'll have a big year. The Packers need some sort of pass rush. That's what really hurt them last year. Bringing him in from Iowa, he's my defensive rookie of the year. I'm calling for 9.5 to 10.5 sacks at the end of the year.
So you're calling your shot just like Babe Ruth did when
I'm calling it. Yeah, I'm pointing right now. I'm both of you guys. There we go. That's my rookie of the year.
We heard it here first.
Yes.
Yep. So Joe, what's your shot to call for defensive rookie of the year?
Yeah, I went with the chalk on this one. Jalen Carter was my first pick. I said Will Anderson perhaps. So no rocket science here. I just went with the obvious choices here.
And now I kind of heard this when I came back after my internet went down. You were talking about your breakout player of the year. Who do you think is going to be your breakout player? Joe, do you want to start on this one?
I was talking about Jalen Phillips. Maybe that's why we got a comment from a Dolphins fan here, which we always appreciate the comments. But Jalen Phillips, linebacker of the Dolphins, he's got that swagger. He's throwing snowballs, in 0 degrees in Buffalo here, doing great. Again, Miami's defense is underrated, I think. And I picked him. And for offense, to pick one there, there's a tight end out there on the Broncos. I always get him cheap on speaking of DraftKings, on fantasy teams. Very cheap. Greg Dulcich, I think it is.
Yep, you got it.
And consistent, and I think he's a good guy that Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson will have a bit of a comeback year here. And a good guy for him to rely on. So he would be my offensive pick, and Phillips would be my defensive pick.
John, what about you? You were starting to talk about your breakout player until
I said Jordan Love would be my pick. Jordan Love of the Packers, and I picked Zach Wilson. Well, Zach Wilson now has the keys to the Ferrari. Let's see how I think. You know what? I'm banking on him having a good year. This would be a break. He looked like a bust. He looked like he was benched last year for Mike White. So I think between those two guys, Jordan Love, nobody thought he could play. Who could be a starting? They go from Favre to Rodgers to Jordan Love. So far, Love looks the part, but I think he'll have a big year for the Packers.
Okay, so lastly, but surely not least, let's talk about the man, the myth, the main honcho, the coach of the year. John, who do you think is going to be getting this award?
Ooh, the NFL coach of the year. So that's a great. How about Kevin Stefanski of the Browns, coach of the year? I'm gonna go Kevin Stefanski. The Browns are legit. The Browns may end up winning that division. I'll go Kevin Stefanski. I'm gonna pile on with Joe with Myles Garrett leading that D. Deshaun Watson will get more and more reps. I'll go Kevin Stefanski and the Browns coach of the year.
What about you, Joe?
Well, John and I were talking about the wide open NFC South, how pretty much anybody can win that division. And a team that looked good in week one, and I think, nobody's talking about right now. We were talking about Bijan Robinson. I thought for offensive rookie of the year. I am going to vote for Arthur Smith as coach of the year. I think the Falcons surprise a lot of people. The division's wide open. They can easily win it. Granted, they'll win it at nine wins. But he's a guy, nobody's talking about him. Nobody's talking about them. They quietly beat Carolina by, I think, 10 points the other day. And that's a team that's going to be fun to watch and I think is going to win some games. So, I think, nobody's talking about them now, but they may be, later in the season here.
My pick for B would be Dan Campbell of the Lions. That's if I can get a second one, Jamie, just in case my first one goes off the rails. My backup is Dan Campbell of the Lions. There you go.
Okay, so it looks like we're coming to the end of our show, folks. And I also want to thank John for coming on to the show tonight. You were great as always.
A lot of fun, Jamie. You guys got to do a great job, Jamie and Joe. It was a pleasure being with you guys tonight. A lot of great stuff.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming on.
But we're not done just yet. John. I just wanted to say thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
Joe, where can we find you in this crazy era of social media in 2023?
All right. I'm at Joe Dell Sports at the X formerly known as Twitter. And again, on my page there, a lot of Bill stuff, but we talk Mets, we talk some, hockey, basketball, once that gets going, even some soccer on there. So Joe Dell Sports on X Twitter.
Nice.
And so, John, where can we find you?
On X at John DeTilio on Facebook, Twitter, and also at Radio 95.1. Just go to the iHeart Radio app and type in the name, and voila. We'll send you right to the podcast from the station.
Okay, so and then lastly, you can find yours truly on Bill's Chat 1 at Bill's Mafia Chat, and also at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dog Tags on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it these days.
Okay.
And DefiantTakesFootball.com, where I write stories about the Bills, Syracuse football, and spring football. And I also write for FanBuzz.com covering G5 football. Thank you very much for listening, folks. And remember, it's only week one. Bills fans can panic all they want. Allen had 4 turnovers in the game. The offense is a work in progress with some of the play calls. The defense looks really good, But remember, as Chris Berman always said back in the 90s as a diehard member of the Bills Mafia and great ESPN journalist, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. We'll see you next time, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Good
Thanks,
night.
Jamie. See you,
Thank
Joe.
you. Thank you.